Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Title, a series where I call people from various fields and we try to uncover what's really happening in the field. For this episode, I have called Fullstack developers. We have three guests with us. One is Bhavesh, he's a lead Fullstack. Then we have Yash, who is principal Fullstack developer, and we have Zeel, who is SD at Amazon. It was a good conversation. It was a bit long, again, my fault, but I'll be launching the Clips channel soon, where I'll be posting the shorter version of it. And a small problem that which I want to highlight, I messed up the video. So long story short, if you're going to use a new tool, just test it first. Anyways, my video is a bit out of sync, so I might look funny, but other than that, my audio and guest audio and video, everything is in sync. I tried to fix it as much as I could. So here is it. But yeah, here it is. Anyways, just enjoy. Okay, we'll start with a quick introduction and your background story. Like what inspired you to become a developer? Like, did you always wanted to be a developer, or you just came across the field and you started doing it? Bhavish, you can start if you want. Tell us about how you got into.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, like myself, Bhavesh Sharma, I'm working as a lead full stack developer at Infidget. So my developer story, so I have done basically engineering in instrumentation and technology from Mumbai, Visit. I always wanted to be a developer, but my engineering stream was not as a computer or IT. I got into instrumentation, and then I learned from my roommates, my friends about how does the developer and IT sector works. And then then I shifted my everything into the IT domain. I started with doing some simple designs on WordPress, and then I found some good on hands-on on front-end development, and then I led up into doing backend as well. So now I'm completely into full stack developer.
So, so far as I know, you have
Yeah,
started
Nikhil, on to
development
you.
very recently, na? Like Bhavesh, on your own only you
Yes,
learned the whole
I got
coding languages.
yes, I got graduated in the COVID era, and then I started learning whole like WordPress front end and back end on my own from the YouTube University, not from the college.
That's nice. Okay, that was Bhavesh for us. Yash, would you like to go next?
Yeah. So I'm actually working as a principal engineer at a company called Flexi Loans. I used to be like a senior full stack developer, then became a tech lead, and now eventually I'm working as as a principal engineer at a fintech company called Flexi Loans. Uh, so Vesit has been very near to me. I stay in Chembur, and I've done like 10 years of schooling to it. More than that actually now, like I think about it, like I think 14 years of schooling in Vesit. And then I got computer science in Vesit. And then over there, the culture is very limited, right? Like you have to wear a uniform, and you're only allowed to do a certain amount of things. And I was like, I want to get out of this environment. I want to see what else is there out there. So I got a seat in Vesit. People go for comp science. I got that. I ditched all of that, and then I went to Thadumal Shani, which is in Bandra. That's where I did my engineering from in information technology. And then I passed out in 2018. TCS, Accenture, Wipro came to recruit, and they were taking 3 lakh mein 20 engineers, 80 engineers, 100 engineers, and I was like, this will not work out for me. So somehow I had the guts to decide that I will not sit for college placements at all. I don't know why I did that, but I just decided that I will not sit for college placements at all. And then I started looking for startups, started looking for companies who are doing something odd, not your standard thing. And then I eventually ended up joining a startup where the guy was like, you don't know anything. I'm not here going to teach you. I don't want to pay you. But what I can do is I can give you a platform. Come join, work at my startup, do your own thing. Don't work for me. Do your own thing. And wherever you get stuck, I'll help you out. So for a year, I did an unpaid internship over there. That's how I got started with engineering. That's where I learned almost everything. I did a 1 year unpaid internship. I used to get up, go to college, bunk three of my lectures after 12 o'clock, and then go to this startup, work till 10 in the night. And then that's how I learned engineering. That's how I learned how to code. And basically, again, YouTube University is the place where I think every engineer goes to, right? Like at that time, So I think we are sort of getting into that old zone, maybe not zeal, maybe Bhavesh, me, and a few other engineers. Now we're getting into that old zone where we can say कि भाई हमारे time पे तो AI ही नहीं था, right? We used to be those people who used to consider Google, searching on Google as an art, right? Like we used to be like, you need to know how to search on Google, how to search for Stack Overflow answers, because at that time there used to be no ChatGPT, right? This is only very recent. Those were the three things where I learned my entire engineering from, and also quite surprising how engineering degrees are valued so much. But every engineer, almost every engineer that you meet with will say that they've learned nothing related to engineering in college. So just something to think about.
In fact, each and every role now, I'm an electronics engineer and I'm a designer right now. So it's completely different. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thanks, Nikhil, for having me. Of course, I am with two OGs here. I don't think I have experience or much more experience like they have, but I did my engineering from LDRP ITR Gandhinagar. I graduated in 2020, computer science engineering only. So how my college days were, I would explain that to you. So my first year went on cribbing because I didn't have good scores in JEE. I got into college which I did not want to get into. So my first year went just like hitting my college. I don't want to be here. Cribbed the entire year, and then second year I finally realized I cannot do anything. I need to get out of this college. And of course, yeah, from the beginning, liked during the school days, I liked HTML, CSS, and all that kind of stuff. And that led me taking computer science engineering. And I always wanted to be a developer. After that, I think in second year of my college, I decided, okay, I will take development very seriously. I will learn everything on my own and try to actually you know do something good out of it. I cannot hate my college anymore. I need to do something to have to reach to the level where students from my dream college were. So that is how I started learning development on my own. Of course, I met few mentors. One of my cousin sister helped me with resources to learn how to learn, where to learn from. And then I think in third year of my college, I joined again one unpaid internship kind of startup where they were building clone of Swiggy, and I wasn't paid. Of course, I also used to go to college for only 2-3 days, and I got letter of low attendance from college as well. That is how I started working on development side of things. And after I think in my third year, I did 8 or 9 months internship there. And then that is where I got hands-on experience with development. And after that, I think in my final year, what I did was kind of mentor the students, not mentor, but I did not teach the students, but different courses like BCA, MCA students, they have their call. Everyone have their project in final year, right? So they used to come to me to resolve their errors and maybe ask few questions related to DB designer, whatever. So I have to unblock them. That was my task. And that is also one point where I learned like resolving others error always helps us learning more. So that is how I think. So that is what I did in my final year. And of course my college did not have great placement. I got few off campus offers and on campus as well from company Cognizant. I also received one offer from local company where I interned for 3 months. During internship, it was 100% backend development in Java. But after interning there, I felt कि मुझे तो सब आता है. And whenever I feel like I know everything, I know that that is not the correct place for me to be. You have to there should be some challenge in the workplace to grow. So that is when I decided, okay, I can't join early company, I need to do more. And that was always in my head. And then COVID happened. I was 2020 graduate, so it was just during lockdown period, and then I had full faith in my development experience. So I said, see, now I have development experience. Now maybe I should learn DSA and get into good company, which I did. And then I got into Bharat Pay. After 8 months, I joined Bharat Pay as software engineer, and I worked there for over an year and then switched to Amazon and working at Amazon since past 2.5 years. Yeah, of course, I learned everything from YouTube. There were no chat GPTs during my era too, so I'm not AI kid right now. Like, of course, chat GPT helps, but yeah, this has been my story of learning things.
That's the thing. Talking about AI now, people had questions about AI as well. Ke how like, do you guys think AI is going to take over or aisa wala cheez? Everybody have the same question. I always say that it is always going to be a companion, not a competitor. But if it gets good, like if you use it way too much, like refine this code, and he's going to learn and he's going to remember. मतलब अभी if we are in the phase one of what we are seeing, what a chatbot can do in coding, right? What do you guys think of that? Like AI in coding, like do you like the code of that?
So I can go first. I don't think, at least the model which is right now, or the response, the kind of response Chat GPT or Bard or any AI tool, LLM tool is giving is not 100% accurate. Even though you ask them to regenerate the code multiple times, there is always some sort of error in that code. So I don't think chat gpt or any other tool can help generating or building things from scratch as of now. But as you said, it is learning. Maybe it can do it after some time, but at least right now it is not helping. And then you have, let's say, for me, for a company like Amazon, we do have internal tools and internal language and internal scripting things which AI model is 100% unaware of. So in cases like this where company have some internal tools which is not publicly available, chat gpt will never, something like that will never work. Of course, I think how I use ChatGPT the more is not to ask them to code something or write something. I usually use ChatGPT mostly for some sort of high level design where I want to interact, where I want to start thinking of making some decisions whether to use this, let's say whether to use Kafka or Kinesis or any that kind of discussion which I want to have, and I don't have a friend around me, no one is free around me, I'll go and ask ChatGPT. That is that, and I'll try to argue, and that is how I use ChatGPT as of now. But no, 100% code it can't at the level. That is my opinion.
What do you guys think, Bhavesh, Yash?
Okay, at least chat GPT or any GPTs or any AI algorithm won't help you as much as Zero already mentioned it. 2% of thing, 2% sort of your code, it will help you at least the basic level of the prototype, like the structure. It will help you out, but not complete entirely. And many of the times, what I've seen is it will turn your things more worse. Like if you send him a piece of a code, so it will regenerate different things again and again. So it doesn't help you much, and it's also time consuming. Like you will think in and you will write your own code and structure well, but rather than sending him again and again and doing the job. So in future maybe.
Who can think so fast in coding language? Huh? Like we can, but the new people, like they are growing up with that only. Like they're starting their career with using an AI. So the way you guys think, who are from non-AI era, the way you guys think and solve a problem, you guys have built that we can say कि वो एक base, a strong base of how to think of a issue in a technical point of view and वैसा वाला. Yash, what are your point of view on this?
I actually have a little bit of conflicting opinions. I thought both of them would say that it's kicking ass because I think it's kicking ass. Or maybe it's just, maybe I just have a different perception of the entire thing. So one of the problems that I think in general companies will face is how they're integrating AI into their code bases, right? So if it's just you're using ChatGPT on your via your email ID, you're logging in and you're feeding it personal small pieces of code because a lot of companies will not allow entire code base access to your AI, right? You will not give if there's any sensitive IP restricted code base, if you're under regulations like people are in fintech companies, you cannot do those things, right? But then on the other hand, we've integrated AI quite a bit, and what it is helping with is it's laying a lot of groundwork, boilerplate code, which is in general available, but then on top of that, some contextual code base as well. We use Copilot quite heavily, and it has context of decent amount of our code base in certain repositories where it's okay to integrate it. And the amount of code that it can generate quickly, faster than what a normal developer can is amazing, right? Whether it will take over jobs or whether it will reach a scenario where developers are not required, I think it's really function of how quickly innovation happens, right? OpenAI was building ChatGPT or different GPTs for 6 years, 8 years, and a lot of people did not even know about it. It's only when they released it that entire it's like a what do you call an avalanche, right? Once they released it and then everybody went hard, 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 hard.
We want the to we want to release our product as well. See what
Yeah, exactly. The companies that were reluctant to release because they did not have guideline approvals now suddenly have pressure on getting those guideline approvals done, releasing their products so that they can still be in race. It's Google, it's Perplexity, it's Cloud 3.5 Sonnet, which is the new latest thing that everybody's talking about. You integrate that with Cursor, Cloud 3.5 Sonnet, Cursor, and then there is this new Talk AI, which is you can just speak to it and it'll convert your text to your speech to text and then feed it. So you now don't even have to type and it'll just feed it to Cloud 3.5 Sonnet, which will then feed it to Cursor AI, which will then feed it to your code base, and then the entire code is written quickly. So if this innovation keeps on happening and it keeps on increasing at the pace that it has been going, uh, I think somewhere or the other, people have been having to upskill since AI has come, right? It's not as if people are not upskilling, but if the innovation keeps on going, it'll just keep on getting better and better. And I think you will have to. So it's one of the things that I've started telling people now, right? That there used to be this famous saying, all of us have probably heard it, right? It's by Linus Torvalds. He says, "Talk is cheap. Show me your code." Now I tell my junior devs, or I just tell devs that because of AI, code is cheap. Show me something else that can back these things up because you could just type into an AI and it'll give you like 10 pages of code, but if you could just do it in one line, or if you could just refactor this, or you could maybe your prompts are wrong, maybe what you are integrating the code base does not has context of everything. So yeah, now I think code has become cheap. There needs to be something else that needs to be relied upon.
got it. Yeah, that's a good point actually. Like next we had was they wanted to know your typical day-to-day in role. Abhi, I know there are roles like Abhi, what we have typical day-to-day in corporate that we go and check mails and we do meetings most of the time, like 80% of the times we are in meetings only, and 20% of the time we are working. So still people want to know your day-to-day life, the how it is at a different company size and at your role at a manager kind of a managerial role. So yeah, you can say like Bhavesh, what is your day to day? I know what is your day to day life, but still.
So at least for me, it's like quite a different because we are into product base as of now, and we are building our product from scratch. So at least my role is divided into development, a less of development now, but more of a managerial, where I have to take requirements from my stakeholders, build all the user stories and everything, and then I have to sit on the meetings where to understand the requirement of from the UX designers or APMs or PMs and everything, and then see how it will be integrated to our existing code base, which was built earlier. And then we start our development and everything, the system design basically. So my working hours are still in divide of managerial as well as less of a development work. Nikhil knows it better.
Even I was a part of those meetings, so I know very well. But do you miss coding? Like
Yes.
at that time, I was a UX designer, so I used to design every day. Now that even I'm a senior
Hmm.
designer, I miss designing a lot because now I have to teach more and I don't get to do because and half of the time I'm doing the meetings and everything. So do you also miss coding or do you get time to code in your day-to-day life?
I get time to code because yeah, I get time to code. Not always, but yes, I do get time to code.
Yeah, that then it's good. I usually when I got like I get the base and then I have to refine it over that. I don't get to make everything from scratch. But that is something which I have seen like people going like people loving their field, and when they go to a higher like level, they don't get to do it. So that's the worst part. But anyways, it's fun. Like Yash, what is your day-to-day life as a principal?
I actually have a follow-up for Bhavesh. Like, right, you say sometimes you get time to code, sometimes you don't get time to code. Uh, how do you stay close enough to the code base that when you're doing code reviews as a manager or a senior dev, because I'm assuming not just junior folks will be watching this, there'll be like a lot of senior folks who will also end up watching this. How do you make sure that your code reviews are on point? Because a lot of times if you're not near the code base, you probably don't know whether this is the right thing to do. Maybe there's a better way of solving this. So how do you do that?
So, so on our stand-ups, when we have that stand-up meetings in morning, so we discuss like what are we working and how our code structure is rigged. So it's not I'm completely out of my code zone. So in our backend team, we have 3 to 4 backend devs only. So I'm not like entirely away from my code base where I don't know anything what's happening and around. So I'm very close to my code base with where my junior devs are working with me. So it helps me to review their code in a much better way. As like it's not that we have a much my team size is not bigger where I'm completely away from my code base. I'm doing it on a weekly once or twice a day, but they are very closely connected to me and we discuss all the problems and errors. So it's easy as of now.
Yeah, so for me, it is just solving problems across the entire tech at the company, right? And solving problems that are a little bit on the complex side of things. So let's say, for example, if our servers, one of the servers that another engineering team is managing is experiencing high latency, finding out why that latency is there, solving that latency, whether it's an ELB issue, whether it's a code level issue, whether the APIs are taking more time, maybe the database connection is taking more time, maybe the query is extremely slow, or maybe there is some asynchronous function happening on a different thread or in background. So it turns out that the APIs are still fast. There's no query that is slow. There's all the cachings available, but some asynchronous action is happening somewhere else. So it's primarily just solving these problems that come across my way. I've purposely not I purposely split my time in a way where I can code a little bit more because I wanted to get back into that role. Previously, in a few other roles, I was a bit more on the managerial side, and then I realized that I miss coding and could potentially do both the things together now, right? You need some amount of managerial experience also to be very good at it. Now I can balance both the things together, so I dedicate about 30% of my time to managerial stuff, maybe even less than that. And then even managerial stuff is basically if I solve this problem for the company, what business impact is it going to cause? So I sit down with the product folks, try to understand that, and then we solve it. Like we moved out of Datadog a while ago, and and we hosted everything into Grafana, Prometheus, Loki, Promptail, and all of that stuff, and that really helped us save a, a few $1,000s a month in terms of what we're paying on our engineering costs. So those sort of things come my way. 70% is just primarily coding or sitting down with the team and figuring things out, and then 30% is managerial. And then the general stuff, daily stand-ups, reviews, weekly catch-ups, and all of that. Our tech team is, I think, anywhere between like 100 to 150 folks, and the company is about 600 to 800 people in size.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Seal, what about you? How it is at MNC?
Yes, I'm at Amazon. So my role is of individual contributor, but I think in my company, at least in Amazon, we do have initiatives which you are tech lead of. So on paper, it is individual contributor, but still you have to, sort of contribute in a managerial way. Like, for example, there is some sort of initiative which I'm tech lead of. Then I need to take care of everything. I need to talk to the responsible people, let's say product manager or someone from network.
This is be fast like 1.5 ka
Okay.
speed.
Yeah. Okay. So at Amazon, I think we do have that kind of initiative. We do have that kind of mechanism or model where you are tech lead of some sort of initiative. So you have to work with different stakeholders involved. Let's say product manager or even QA or all that kind of people. So you get to meet them. You have to take opinion from them about your initiative which you are leading, and then you need to also plan the task out. You need to assign that to the correct person, and also you have to code. So it's mix of everything. If you are tech lead, your bandwidth will go 50% into doing managerial things, and 50% or whatever you have assigned to yourself, that will go for your coding thing. But I think for me, I try to balance out coding with other different things too. Let's say, for example, previous project which I was working on was like 80% on. I was working 80% of my time. I was just coding. So that is when where I enjoyed coding a lot. But then I also want to look on to some operational excellence, like things like, let's say, latency of certain API is not working. DynamoDB cost is going high for one particular table, then I try to find tasks like this and work on it so that I also get to know about the other things apart from coding as well. So that is how I try to balance my things. But yeah, again, apart from coding, I think 55% of my bandwidth in a day goes to attending meetings, syncing with different people, and then yeah, and also geographical location also plays a huge role, right? So because I have a development team in India, one is in Taiwan and another is in US. So to sync with people from two different time zones, it's quite a task. So you have to attend meetings off hours too. So that is how usually my day is. Yeah, very very hectic.
They are training you for a higher roles as well with the small task and everything where you have to lead the whole task.
Yeah.
So they are kind of
Yes, yes, yes.
in a way they are training you for higher roles. That's really good.
Yeah, yes. That is what I said. On paper, it is individual contributor, but then you get responsibility of managerial role as well. So that is how it is.
That's great. So okay, I had one more thing. To keep yourself updated, where do you go? Like, what are the resources or things where you look for? Since this tech environment is changing a lot, even the technologies which you guys are using, they are getting updated, and there are new coming up on top of that. So, how do you keep up with everything, and where do you go to for that? Your go-to.
Yeah. For me, it's now it's primarily Twitter and Discord channels and some old age forums because I feel somehow this has crept into tech, and I don't know how I sort of know how it has crept into tech where people are just producing content for the sake of it, right? It's like it's more of marketing than tech focus. I see a lot of blogs also sometimes that are more of marketing and outreach than tech focused. Like I want to know the most core thing that I can get to know out of this blog. I don't want to have like a marketing outreach sort of a blog, right? Like time is again limited. You need to be. So for me now it has become Twitter and Discord channels over there. People are quite informative on Twitter. Twitter also a lot of marketing outreach does happen. So now you need to be like very if you see if I see like one of those here are 10 reasons or 10 threads on this, I just skip that and go to the other one where somebody who's a legit techie who's posted that, and then that's how I'm upskilling right now. And Discord channels like are the OG way of going about things.
Can you link a few of those channels or something like later on so that others can
Yeah,
also join and something? Yeah. And you have something
sure.
for dev community as well, right? You have the groups and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You
yeah,
guys
yeah.
update there as well?
So yeah, so these communities and Discord channels, these communities are the ones that have Discord channels, right? Either the community can be offline, online, present in both scenarios. So we do something called as I with some of my friends organize something called as Mumpai, which is a Mumbai chapter of the Python user group. And we also do, I started, so basically what happened is after a while when I got into the entire communities and everything, I realized that these communities get quite formal. Like on Saturdays and Sundays, also when we meet, we talk about tech and all of these things. And a lot of times people would come to me and they approach me and they DM me about things that are around tech, but not core tech, right? I don't want to know how to optimize my Promptil and Grafana ka architecture. I want to know key people are getting laid off. What should be my best approach in this scenario? Right. So I started a community called Dev Dinners. And in Dev Dinners, what we do is we come together on one afternoon and then or evening, and then we sit and we just talk about things in life of a developer around tech, not like core tech. You talk about core tech, but around tech. And it's basically conversations like um, layoffs are happening. What's the best approach in this? Somebody was once talking about how they deleted the production database and what happened, and they got fired, and this, that, and everything. Another person was saying, I'm working in Microsoft. I came to do my visa over here. I'm flying to US. I saw this post, so I came to meet you guys. One person was like, I'm an intern. I want to know tech mein job hai, ya should I just start to go another field altogether, right? So it's just a bunch of people coming together, chilling on a Saturday evening. That's what Dev Dinners is about. And Mumpai is the Python users group in Mumbai.
That's great. So people can connect and they can at least get a wider perspective where they can just ask something. Yeah. We'll link those two things that you guys are running so that people can reach out to you guys as well. And Bhavesh, how do you keep yourself updated? What are your go-to resources like?
Okay. So there are, as Yash already mentioned regarding, there are many groups and there are many channels, but there are blogs also, which define, at least not they won't give the entire solution, but at least you will be get updated on certain amount of things. Even on LinkedIn also nowadays people are posting many of the good contents, at least. Well, you will know something is happening good or something innovation has happened in our industry. And even there's TechCrunch, where you can go and read something about your tech articles. So at least you get at least like more information about being updated on the technical side of the things.
Okay, TechCrunch and all. Zeel, what about you?
Yeah, so I think again for me, if I want to know about improvements, it is tech blogs of companies. Like all the companies, big companies, even startups in India have their own tech blogs. If I want to know something new of what's happening, that is where I go. And otherwise, it's always I think Twitter. So at some point, I think LinkedIn blogs and all are saturated, and they are again, as Yash said, they are just for sake of producing content. Like I cannot derive any meaning out of that blog. Maybe it's just random Google search placed into one certain tech blog. Not all, but yeah, few of them are like that. So that is again, but Twitter is good source. But again, yeah, that is also sort of polluted, and then sometimes you just google it and see the Reddit thread going around, what improvements you can, what all new things are coming. So there is not there is no one single source which I use. It's combination of multiple things. And even internally, I think inside Amazon, it is very, the community of where you can learn different things is very good. So we do have dedicated Slack channels and newsletters for it. So yeah, it primarily it's combination of different things. But again, uh, yeah, I think Google search and tech. Yeah.
Something you guys all refer to. usually, right? Okay. We'll link few of
Yes.
them so people can.
I wanted to ask Zeel,
Yeah.
Yeah, Yash.
there's a lot of lag, so I'm sorry if I'm cutting somebody off. So I think one, two things in general. One is in general, I wanted to ask, do either of you get new information out of books, right? There are a lot of good programming books out there. So do you still read them? Do you evaluate them? Do you sometimes read them? Do you always read them? And then second, I wanted to ask Zeel, what is I think a lot of learning also comes from the peers that you are around at, right? So now that you're
Yes,
at
yes.
Amazon,
Yeah.
now that you're at
Yeah.
Amazon versus some other company you were previously, is there like a big difference that you get to learn at? How much of a difference, like let's say for example, if somebody
Yes.
was in a niche company that is not Amazon, and no disrespect to any company, like there are
Yeah.
absolutely good companies other than Amazon also, but what's the difference in between the two companies in terms of learning?
Okay. So, I think one important point which I missed out with this resources was again talking to peers. We have tech leads, like principal engineers around us. So sometimes, it's just conversation over coffee where you learn new things. So in Amazon, this is what I'm talking about. And then to answer Yash's question, I think again, every company has its own thing, but with Amazon, I would say Amazon trains us to become more sort of, cloud engineer. Not cloud. I am not saying master of all the cloud services and all. But I think if I compare my work at Amazon and previous companies where I have worked or interned, the task was limited to coding, pushing things to production, and it's working well for the customers. That is there. But now here in Amazon, the difference which I'm seeing is it's not done when it is pushed to prod and customers are able to get what that product was meant for. It's also around architectural things and decisions which you make through the process and reflecting to that mistakes and doing it better. So for example, let's say, again I said, like, indexing of the DB is not proper. I mean, let's say if it is a write heavy DB, indexes are not proper, and then you know you can't see any big impact other than cost. So that is something. So monitoring things, I would say Amazon monitors things like right from the stage of beta to production, and then after prod too. Amazon monitors things a lot. So we try to, there are literally you have to do operational excellence work where you need to learn and you need to think about different things which are not core development. Let's say, you need to also think about different test cases, scenario, and all other that kind of things. But I would say main difference here is, again, first is, I would, let's say at my previous company, we would not do the like in-depth cost analysis of things, or people like me who are at individual contributor level are not part of that decision making process. Here in Amazon, we are part of that decision making process as well. And independence of selecting the tech stack, for example, is there in Amazon, which is not which wasn't there in previous companies. How I would put it in short is, I think you are not just software engineer in Amazon. You have to have all kind of things here. You are also supposed to test the products, like not the unit test or integ test or basic test. You have to actually think of automating the test. So I think the thought process is something which is quite different here. And technology wise, I would say we use AWS a lot because that is built in for us and we don't have to generate many things around it. So we prefer AWS over anything. That does not mean we will not use any open source thing. So, but again, let's say if I have a choice of Kafka and I have SQS, any Amazon engineer would go and use SQS because we have whole architecture built around that and it is compatible. And if I am working at some different company, maybe I would look at, okay, there is Kafka, there is SQS, there is some other thing. I need to do proper analysis. Cost wise, I'll select whatever is cheaper than other, and performance wise, what is better. That kind of things is better in other companies. Of course, you have a choice, but I think mostly it's around the deadlines in Amazon. Amazon also uses external tools and all that kind of thing, but it's just that we as engineers have few things ready for AWS and we use that. Yeah, so of course our whole thing revolves around AWS. Maybe it is a maybe you'll get more information about AWS and you'll be master of AWS, different components of AWS cloud, but at same time you'll not know what are other options outside AWS, which I think is better in other companies. So I don't know if I have answered your question correctly. Yes, I need to recollect all my thoughts to.
No, that's actually
But
quite
yeah,
helpful.
yeah. You are on mute, Nikhil.
Wow. Anyways, so I got one question on that line only, how to choose a tech stack. So one of the question was, now that you are seeing trends, let's say you research and everything, and if you want to make a new product, so how do you select a tech stack which is like fine with it? Like, do you go with a trend like this coding language is trending, so we'll go with that, or something old and tried and tested languages like Java and something which you go for? So what is it? How do you pick, like, this is something I want to build, this is what will go into it? Like how?
Okay, so at least how this works is like at least trial and tested. Like we it's like individual opinion also in this. Like at least if you know that language well, then you can build anything.
Is it something like, what if I tell you there is this one product which can be done
Hmm.
better in a language which you don't know, and versus in a
Hmm.
language that you know very well, but the other language will give
So
a better result, which will you go?
so then you have to weigh both of the sides of it, like the pros and cons of your team composition also. But if a team is like if it's built like let's say if your team has an expertise of only Node.js, then then they should be able to at least cope up with the new language which you want to build in.
Okay. Yes, what about you?
I have a very funny story around this. And this happens, yeah. Like, let's not pretend that these things don't happen, right? I have a friend of mine who worked at a company and they had this piece of architecture. So they had this server that was receiving a lot of CPU intensive tasks, right? And primarily a lot of times for the past few years, until unless JavaScript went crazy with all the new frameworks, a lot of people were using just Express as their HTTP server and with TypeScript and a few other things. And that is not good for CPU intensive task, right? Like if you have a CPU intensive task, your main thread will get blocked, your asynchronous workflow, your event loop will get stuck, and your latency automatically increases. So these two developers in a startup decided कि भाई we'll rewrite this entire thing in Go and it'll be extremely fast and we'll serve our customers amazingly well and this is a step up. And for a month they were just rewriting that entire server in Go and they did not know Go. Okay, so they learned it on the fly while they were coding and they were like, this is the best practice, this is the best practice, and they built that entire thing. Over the next 3 months, they were not able to release any new feature because that code base became so complicated, they couldn't move around it. If there was a unstructured JSON, they had to build that entire that entire hash map of what the object would look like or what the hash would look like so that it gets converted into structured code. And there's compile time checks and a lot of other things that happen in Go. And it's very different from how typically JavaScript operates. For 3 months, they couldn't ship anything and they rewrote it back into JavaScript, right? So for 4 months, they literally went from JavaScript node to Go and then from Go back to JavaScript because, yeah. So it's like a funny story around what Bhavesh was speaking about because just because technology is far much better, it's good, and everybody lo loves it, and it's actually really good. There could potentially be a lack of talent in your company, or maybe you are not that skilled at a certain tech, and then you code that entire thing, and you're not able to ship features to your users. So what's the point of building that? So to like going back to answering your question, it's really a function of a lot of things. One, are you a startup who wants to move quickly? Maybe you skip your entire integration tests and unit tests and you ship every day something new so that the people in beta can use it very quickly. You go with a language that's maybe not that fast and amazing, but it helps you ship quickly, and then you're able to get things to your customers better. But if you're at a company that's like a 600 people size, you break anything on a day, and then 20 other people are stuck, and then they are not productive. So even if it's a small mess from your end, the impact is quite big on some other team in some other part who did not even like I got up today morning to come to work and have a nice day, and this engineer broke thing for me, so everything's stuck. Now my work needs to get done because company तो बोलेगी कि नहीं भाई ये तो हो जाना चाहिए था, and I have to now work on some other day or something of that sort, right? So it's really a balance of what you're building. If you genuinely one strong advice is if you pick up languages based on trends, you will reach nowhere. That's a very big no. Just stay away from that. Just because people are saying Rust is an amazing language right now, you should learn Rust, or Elixir is beautiful, and which they are. Trust me, they are, and they are best. But just because you're doing it because it's in trend right now, you will get nowhere.
Actually, the what you said
I
now that uh, yeah, Bhavesh, you were saying something.
so I think Nikhil, this happened with us like 1 year back when we were like developing our own product.
Working the product, like we had to start from the
Correct.
sketch
Scratch.
thing.
So we
What was
migrated from
this?
C sharp. So we migrated from C sharp to Python.
So when we joined, actually there was an external team who had built an MVP for us, and that's after which we built our own team and analyzed everything. That's what we understood that when Bhavesh stepped in, he understood like where the problems were and why it was lagging so much and all. That's where we changed the whole tech stack and shifted everything to a new language. And then it was the performance went like 10x faster from whatever operations that we were doing. So that was good. But yeah, again, so sticking to the old and tried and tested one or something that you know properly is. And on the same line that Yash, what you said, one minor this. Hello, you can hear me, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I can
So
hear you. Yeah,
actually,
I
I
can
had
hear you.
question for that only. When you said that one bad code or one problem can lead to 20 other developers getting stuck. So there was this one question which, since you guys are full stack and you might be having people from front end only and back end only, right? And you have to manage them. So what is the ideal practice you guys feel like they should have among themselves so that there is a good communication and a good flow as well? Like, are there documentation? Should there be a documentation or just communication or the way it could be handled among themselves within the team?
So yeah, I again. So there are people who are born with certain, or they're not born, matlab their brain develops in a certain way that they just are better in general at front end because they have some designing sense. They have the ability to understand what this should look like or how these things should function. There are certain people who are just tend to go towards a back-end डेवलपमेंट बिकॉज दे लाइक मेरे को वो राउंड नहीं करने कॉर्नर्स बटन के, और मुझे वो दिखता भी नहीं है लाइक इवन इफ द डिजाइन हैज अ क्लियर कट राउंडेड बॉर्डर, I as a person will not be able to identify that, right? That's just not me as a human being. Nikhil says I know. So, so to answer your question, I think if there is a distinction, if there is a front-end team and then there is a back-end team, you should not have it's not a step function, right? A step function is key. It is either zero or it is either one. So it goes like this, then it goes upper, and then it goes like this. It's not a step function, it's a gradient. your front-end developers should understand some basics of how backend works, and your backend developers should understand a good amount of basics of front-end works because they need to collaborate and they need to talk to each other, and it cannot always be process driven. If I tell you that I'm going to send you a list of rows to render on the front end in a JSON, just because my server has the capacity to send 10,000 rows at a time does not mean I need to render those 10,000 on the front end at the same time. So this communication cannot be process driven. The front end folks needs to understand some basics of how HTTP timeouts happen, why you cannot send the entire JSON in one go. The backend folks need to understand that the front end will lag when something like this happens. So it's a gradient. It's not a clear cut line. There's a gradient. Once you have this gradient between your front end team and back end team, then it can be a little bit process driven. Then it can be key, oh, once we decide what the API is going to look like, I don't need to wait for the development of the API. I can have a stub. A stub is basically a dummy response in which I already know the JSON. So the front end team can develop simultaneously as the back end team. So your time to do production is split into half because now you're not doing ek ke baad ek, now you're doing it in parallel. You define that stub, and then let's say, for example, if that stub changes, or that JSON response changes for XYZ reason whatsoever, you inform them quickly because their development is already started, their testing will get affected, they'll be delayed, you'll be delayed. So those processes will always exist. But saying कि I'm a backend developer and I don't want to understand how server-side rendering happens or how front-end works or how DOM works or how virtual DOM works and all of these things, it's completely wrong. And as a front-end developer, you should not say things like, I don't understand why an API needs to give a response in this format. I want a response in this format. Why don't you just build a wrapper around it? Or X number of reasons. Like it's a gradient rather than a step function.
Got it. There has to be some kind of a knowledge about both, at least even though you are focusing on one part of the full stack, you should have a knowledge.
Yeah.
Bhavesh, how do you handle
Yeah, but that does not mean full stack. Just because a front-end developer has, yeah, a little bit of overlap with backend, that does not mean full stack. It's just an overlap.
Yeah, actually, the same thing happened with me as well when I was working with Bhavesh, when I started working with him and I started designing SaaS products. We automatically started learning how you guys develop and structure and how we should design small little things like apply button and everything, so that your API calls can be called properly and it won't cause this. So there should be some kind of a knowledge in both the end, which that really helps us to build a SaaS product as well. Like my knowledge gained because I started working closely with the developers. Yeah, Bhavesh, what about you? What do you think? Like they should.
At least, yeah. So at least, like it should be a process driven, but not at much. Like in our organization, like whenever a new backend dev or new front end joins, so we have a at least two to three-day session of regarding how backend works, how the front end works. So at least the front end folks should know like how the backend APIs are structured, how the response would be there, and front and backend team would be knowing that how the UX team works because UX is also an important factor when it comes to the SaaS products and how the front end team works. So at least we have that session and then we decide. And while development, we have those sprints where we decide that how the API would be structured because the front end devs they have their specific structures of the components. So their table would accept this amount, the structure of JSON. They can't change it because Nikhil has used something else in the table. So that sort of structure we need to brainstorm before and then we should doc and the API's integration part at least that should be documented on Swagger. We shouldn't be like as a backend dev, we shouldn't just throw away the APIs to our front-end devs to integrate directly. So at least that documentation helps them and makes it more better. At least we have Swagger in place. So at least we have Swagger in place, so which helps our front-end team to work upon it.
And that is Swagger is for APIs and all, right? The backend part.
Yeah, yeah. And front-end devs can access that.
For front end, do we?
Where's the Swagger documentation written for you, Bhavish?
Sorry.
Where's the Swagger documentation written for you? Is it in the code base above each of the APIs in the controllers, or do you specifically write a certain Swagger documentation के लिए अलग area or like a folder separately?
No, we have like above the APIs only.
And for the front end, do you guys have anything? Because how we build the design system from on the design side and then you replicate it on the front end side as well, right? So that I've seen twice now, but I don't know how you guys document it or something so that a new front end developer comes in. So how it should be ideally be documented in from front end point of view?
So at least the component structure we get from the UX only, which you guys have built it, and that was documented. But now we have the whole library around set of that components which we had from our like from 1 year we have that component library which we are using together.
Okay, see?
No, no, no. Your video is paused a bit for me, but your audio, I can hear you. So, again, I agree that backend and frontend should, both of the teams or both of the developers should understand each other's perspective.
I have one question regarding DSA. So, like people were saying, like you need to learn DSA and everything, but is it something that you guys really apply, or is it just on the interview level only, just to test you guys and how deep are you into technology? How is it? How it can help you and how?
I can answer that, I think. With DSA, of course, no company will ever ask you to have sorting algorithms in place and ask you to sort things or use hash map or linked list. That is not there. What DSA helps is it helps us developing problem solving skills, and the basic application which I can see in my work is maybe thinking of edge cases, because DSA is all about handling the edge cases. One method, one thing, one code, one algorithm everyone can write, but the edge cases which you miss, that is what is all the DSA round in the interviews is about. How you handle the edge case. So thought process in I think, of course, thought process is something, the handling of edge cases is better. I think that is one benefit which I think is of having DSA rounds. But again, it's not like we are using DSA anywhere in our work. It is under, maybe it is under the hood. You don't know about the details of how certain things are used. But of course, if you, let's say you are using hash map, then if you do DSA, you'll have some information about hash map, and if you don't do DSA, you'll still have some information about hash map. It doesn't make any difference, I think, but it's just a, I would say, medium to analyze your problem solving skill and how you are able to think through how your brain works when you are thrown certain problem. How do you think, how do you manage to get out of that kind of problem? That is what I have seen. That is where DSA part stops, and that is where you have to actually use your development skill. One thing which I have seen a lot, like people, again, no hate for them, people from top colleges and all, they come, they literally they come for internships in good organization, and they literally they just did DSA for their entire 4 years, and when they actually come and when they are assigned some work, they don't even know what is HTTP, what is difference between HTTP and HTTPS. They don't know what is CRUD. So again, these are the things which development and DSA should go hand in hand. Development is a must. DSA is not a must for many companies. It is not necessary for a lot of startups. I don't think a lot of startups have DSA as primary requirement. But then if you think about certain companies, they do have DSA is their filtering round. So you have to clear that round in order to even reach to the round where you can show your development skills. So I think college students should balance it, DSA and development, because what they are doing right now is, since DSA market, that the whole, I would say, ecosystem around DSA is buzzing, They just do DSA. They don't do development at all. Or, they ignore development and go for some trendy terms like machine learning and all that kind of stuff. Again, if you want to do it, do it. But if you are ending up having a job which needs development, of course you should know what is the basic DSA. No one is going to ask you for write for algorithms to write the solutions of things, right? It is just how it will enhance your thinking, problem solving skills, and handling the edge cases scenario. That's it. There is no practical use of DSA in day to day work, is what I
But it
feel.
will train you. It will kind of like, as you said, it will train you to consider the edge cases and everything. Even those are like under the hood, it will act.
Yeah, that is the.
What about you guys? Have you guys learned?
Okay. So at least around DSA and like as you already mentioned that it's a problem solving. So yes, it's helping in problem. But the new trend which I'm seeing right now, like in resumes, they write solved 100, 200 problems of in on Code Chef, on HackerRank, on Lead Code. So it doesn't it doesn't helps you out at least to it helps you in just leveling up your problem solving skills. But in real life, your code base you don't use it much, but at least a gist of it but you should know at least but if in case you want to crack a mine companies, then DSA is required at least to clear the rounds of Amazon, Flipkart, or maybe Goldman Sachs or Facebook or something. You need DSA if you want to go in like top companies.
So let's say if you remove the to enter the FANG or anything, and if you want to take DSA as a knowledge, like where can you apply it, and should you, is it useful that way, like learning your DSA?
It's useful while you optimize it. When you use it in optimizing your code structure, then it's a useful thing. But the trends and everything people use only to clear it for interview rounds. When you actually do your development, then you many a times tend to forget it to use or something, or you have strict deadlines or something where you are not able to use that skills. But majority of the folks, they try to clear DSA interviews, and just for the sake of it they are learning DSA. But actual implementation they forget to do.
Yes.
So, in one of the companies I joined, I ended up joining them as one of their founding engineers. So I had that ability to do it. During our interview processes, we completely scrapped out DSA. We completely scrapped out intro calls. Our first round was we had you apply, you receive an email saying that, hey, your resume has gotten selected. Here's the assignment. Do that assignment and send it back to us, and we'll review it and we'll get back to you. And the assignment wouldn't be like a 40-hour assignment. You'll take the entire day to do it, and you'll have to sit the entire week. It would be like a 2-hour mini problem. And we say attempt it in 2 hours. If you take more than 2 hours and you feel as if this is not for you, either ditch it and maybe it's not for you. So we say that it's going to only take 2 hours, right? And the reason for that was we had the ability to go on and say that, hey, we are not going to implement DSA on a daily basis. Our company requires more of these type of engineers. We want to know whether you'll be able to build something quickly, deploy something quickly, because it was startup again. So users, something had to be delivered to users every week. And if they are able to do that, if they're able to communicate, if they're available the entire day, they are resilient, they don't give up, they are decent to talk to, they are good to interact with, so they are able to solve technical challenges, they're able to understand technical requirements. A lot of times you don't have the capacity to document in startups. So what you need is somebody who can listen to what you're saying and actually understand what needs to be done and then go and actually implement that. And then maybe you document it like 2 weeks later when you know that that feature is actually going to be used. Otherwise, the entire process is a waste of time. So again, not much to add because so also it's sort of become a business now, no? I feel Bhavesh Z,
Yeah.
people are making money, people are printing money out of it, right? That is why if you crack DSA and then if you have something to boast, maybe my choice of words is completely wrong and I'll get roasted for this, but it has sort of become a business now where people will conduct DSA classes and teach you how to crack these DSA interviews, and and it has sort of become a requirement to clear interviews, right? And since it has become a requirement to clear interviews, people are ready to pay for it, and it has become a business. And once you crack the interview, on the other side lies this beautiful package that you can have.
I think until and unless companies scrap the DSA round, this will exist. It's like JE 2.0, and then now it's not just DSA. Now people are trying to, have HLD classes, courses, and all that kind
Yeah,
of
system
system
design
design
interviews.
courses.
High
So,
level.
yeah, so now, so for students, it is for 12th standard, it is JE. Students, it's DSA, and then if you have two, let's say 1+ years of experience, it is HLD. So of course, this is whole ecosystem. It is built that way. I think if you want to get into certain company, like in my case, I had to have the DSA rounds for both Bharat Pay and Amazon, for which I needed to solve DSA problems, and for which I took course, and then I was taught DSA, and that course was like, it was very good. And then I met few people through that course who are also very active part of tech community in general. So for me it was good experience, but if I talk about overall, they were authentic people from where I learned DS, and all was natural, very natural process, and not just इतने लाख का पैकेज चाहिए तो इतना डीएसए करो, that wasn't there. Yeah, so, but yeah, until and unless companies scrap DSA round out, this will exist
It's
forever.
unfair to say that if they scrap it out, it'll exist forever. I'll play the devil's advocate and then pose a question to Bhavish or Zeel the other way around. If at your organization you had the ability to scrap it out, what would you substitute it with, right? Like if uh, a talent acquisition individual has 500 resumes for your role right now, like Zeel, if you are hiring for your team and then your TA has 500 resumes and Bhavish you have, so what would you substitute it with?
So at least we don't have any DSA rounds for our interviews. Like we don't take any DSA sort of round. We have just this assignment thing only. Where on a call only we give that candidate an assignment. It is not that high level assignment something. Just you need to we just need to see your skills on hardly it will hardly take 30 minutes or maybe 1 hour to solve that assignment. So in general also we don't have any DSA rounds. Not in my this organization, but in my previous organization also we didn't have any DSA rounds. It's just
But
basic
doesn't
assignment.
but doesn't AI sort of render that moot now? Like I was
Hmm.
saying, anybody can write code now, right? Like maybe I'll just
Hmm.
prompt and it's writing, and then I'm writing that assignment using AI, and I mean I can get through it, right?
So at least our assignments are based on our problems, like which we are facing.
So how do you guys judge a
So
code?
those sorts of
How do you
things
guys
we'll
judge a
do.
code, like a good quality code, bad quality code, or AI generated code? Like when you are hiring or judging a candidate, let's say, how do you like come up with that? Like, is this a good quality code? And how can you learn that?
At least you can ask them to explain their code. If they're able to do it line by line, at least then it's written by them. Otherwise, it's AI generated or something.
What else do you look for in the code?
So I a lot of times now I tell people that probably a AI that can generate code is very valuable, but an AI that can review your code is far much more valuable now, because the kind of code that gets written sometimes that is generated by AI and people try to pawn it off onto me. And I'm somebody who has been like, I will read every line of code. Like if I don't understand something, I'm shameless. I'll come to you, I'll bug you, even if you're an intern developer, teach me something new, that's fine. But I want to know, why does this exist, right? Sometimes it can be painful and it can be a bottleneck, and then you have to realize that this is not the time to do it. This is not the time to poke the developer and be like कि नहीं मेरे को ये समझा फिर ही मैं approve करेगा. That sort of an attitude is also bad. But then a lot of times people try to pawn off AI generated code, which they are like कि नहीं नहीं ये तो मुझे मालूम है मैंने लिखा है, and then the PR is quite big and they try to pawn off some a certain AI generated code in a certain section, and I'm like ये कैसे चल रहा है थोड़ा समझाओ जरा. Uh, uh, how to select candidates or how to judge code quality is really upon. So this is something that we'll see how it pans out, right? Everything that we are saying right now is a snapshot of what we have experienced in the industry, and that is very personal to all three of us. It could be very different, and the industry is changing as new tools and new technologies come. So if in a few years the technologies change, all these reviews are moot. But then it really depends upon how this entire thing turns out. Right now, a lot of people are writing code via AI, so maybe their ability to review code will decrease. We'll know maybe in 2 years, 3 years when these people who are generating code via AI become senior and then they start reviewing code. I think code reviews are one of the best ways to figure out whether a person, what good quality code and bad quality code is, right? Good quality code is literally just a bunch of people agreeing on similar opinions. That is it. There are certain principles, certain best practices, first way of thinking, and then a lot of people say, yeah, this is the best way of building something, and then a lot of people agree on it, and that becomes good quality code. Until unless someone comes and says, ki, "Arey, this is a better way of doing it," and then that becomes good quality code, right? So,
About this whole interview round of thing, I think I would say whatever suits your company should be the round. For example, let's say a startup just has Node.js and works on React. They might not need any DSA skill, but for company, let's say like Amazon, where for a single position there are 5,000 application at least in a day, uh, there to filter out the people DSA is required. And why? Because Amazon itself does not have even a team, even a project does not have one single tech stack associated with it. So let's say if someone who works in Node.js is asked to code in Java, how will that person easily adjust to that changes is a question. And for that, I think what companies who have DSA round look for is DSA is all about your thought process, as I said. So if they know, okay, these are the things, maybe language is just a medium to communicate, medium of communication or medium where you write the code, but in your head you are clear कि ऐसे 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 ही implementation होगा is also one thing where I think DSA plays a role. Of course, shortlisting is the main part. Shortlisting 5,000 people, you can't check their development skills. DSA is somewhat more like, I would say, what generic skill. It is not language specific. So that is how it is used in companies which require.
what I was saying, what about Bhavesh, maybe since you do project-based, like assignment-based interviews, what are your opinions on
Okay.
selecting somebody based on their open source contributions? Like I like a lot of times when I recruit for senior roles, I see if that resume has some amount of open source contribution.
Open source
That's
contribution.
generally a positive sign for me to have some preference towards a certain resume because that indicates a little bit at least कि this person has felt the brunt of what a bad quality code in an open source PR would look like, and everybody comments on your PR. So that I think is one of the indications for me. Like, do you all use anything similar to that?
At least open source, yes, open source also we use, that's also a factor. But then what I've seen is open source contribution are generally as a team based. Like people have like development team of 4 to 5 people and they do that open source contribution. Not an individual have like has done that. So if an Indian knows that how this part of thing works, why he or she needs the field and brunt of that to do it, so that's play a very important role on that things. Like when we are hiring someone, open contribution are valuable apart from the assignments, and also in assignments with a 100% accuracy we don't accept. Like we are like how the person has had problems on ability. Like if he's not able to do it, did he give up on it, or he's trying to figure out something to make his thing work. So that ability we see and then we judge out of it.
Do you all look for portfolios? If the individual has a portfolio website or something like that?
Yes, yes. If they have incorporated their resumes or if they share it with us.
God.
But developer portfolios, like at least backend portfolios, I haven't seen much. Front-end devs have their portfolios.
Yeah. So that was exactly my question. I have not seen a lot
Hmm.
of backend portfolios.
Hmm.
Yeah, Nikhil, because of that. But then for backend, even I have not seen. And mostly the ones that I've seen for backend are the Netflix clone, Twitter clone, because again, it
Huh.
comes from that entire course ka thing. So it's those clones. But other than that, having a solid backend project that is available for me to review on your GitHub or open source contributions that are individual contributors or something solid is quite a bit of a good indicator to have.
Even for backend, it is much on stream.
Just can you define a backend portfolio? Let's say UI can have a pretty UI they made for front-end devs. They made a complicated UI. So how if backend guy wants to showcase their work, how or what like even if you can give an example project or something that they could create or something on basis of which you can judge.
So quite an interesting question. Very simple, but quite an interesting question because people say backend and they take it very lightly. And I think backend, when you say backend, it covers a world of things. So it's servers, it's scaling your servers, it's different programming languages. In those different programming languages, you have 10,000 different nuances. In those nuances, you have coding practices, guidelines, and then on top of that, you have connections with different databases, knowledge of different databases in terms of if you're building a certain needs to interact with a columnar database, and that's a far much better choice than a row-based database. And having caching layers in between and different caching layers.
Till then, Bhavesh, what do you think? How will you, if you are given a task to create a backend portfolio, what would you showcase and such that it showcases all the skills that you have as a backend developer?
So at least I think it should involve like sort of the whole crud where you can showcase how you optimize your queries while fetching anything from your database, and your APIs are like authenticated. They have only, let's say for example, there's one of your API where the permission is only to an admin or a super admin. So it should involve all the things. So that's a project which you could showcase where you can where you can involve all your development skills, at least the optimization skills.
I think to judge a backend developer, especially at senior roles, is difficult. Maybe, yeah, CRUD helps at junior roles, I think. But backend is, like Yash said, is not limited to just code or code quality. I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, of course, I would look at the code, but I would go more over resume or what person is talking about, because it has so many things. Like even in just one language, the multi-threading is different. The CPU, the memory utilization, the threads assigned to it is something which is different. Let's say you are choosing few things, like even the choice of instance or anything, the memory associated with it, kind of failures and all that kind of things I need to assess. So for me, just to look at the portfolio is something which, of course, portfolio I will look into, but the way the way in which it is written in the matrix of the resume. Let's say that person has enhanced some flow 10% cost decrease की या 50% queries optimize की, something like that is what I will look into. And then if I am interviewing that person, I will ask in detail about that things. So I don't think, I mean, it is my personal opinion, but like front end developer, just one portfolio cannot do justice for a backend developer. So it's more about interaction with that person, is how I will figure what actually that person did.
So I was saying backend development in general or backend in general is a very broad term that people just say out loud, and then it covers a lot of things. So to assess a good portfolio, it really depends upon. I have now moved on to. I generally interview for senior roles, sometimes for junior roles also, but like, so I generally go into more about irrespective of whether it's a server that you have worked with or a caching layer that you have worked with or a database connection optimization, network optimization, indexing optimization, or whatever query optimization that you have done. Irrespective of those things, do you actually understand it, and till what depth do you understand it? There are certain traits that a really good developer will have, something like they understand to the point what is it that they have done. Was it simply just creating an index? Why did you create a certain type of index over another type of index? Or if it was query optimization, why did you choose this sort of a CTE, or why did you not do just join before? Or did you figure out the query plan entirely? Did the query plan suggest some sort of indexing because it was saying it's supposed to be using the index scan, but since the number of rows were limited, it was not using the index scan? Once these things are quite obvious in that project, you can assess whether the individual goes to the core of things to understand the root of things. And then that sort of indicates the kind of developer you will work with eventually if you end up hiring them. That is far much more valuable to me from a resume. So having any project that you can talk about in these terms is what I at least value a lot more.
Got it.
Yeah, so it is basically not one single portfolio which you look into, right? I mean, you just don't look into, we need to interact with that person, or it has to be well documented or well written to, yeah.
It's fine. I just have two questions. One is personal, actually. So
अच्छा
what happens is usually we have this small college between design and dev ka handover, right? So what is the ideal way you guys look for, like essay design file I? So it is the best way to start working. Is it the detailed prototyped version or a properly documented version? What would you love?
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, yes, you can say.
I'll go ahead. So this happens quite a bit. I've been on the receiving end of this, doing end of this. I've been on the review end of this. I've been on the managing end of this. I have received the burnt of this in all possible ways. Maybe not all possible but ways, but most of the possible ways. So as a developer, I'll first talk about I personally fall into those category of people that Nikhil hates, who say कि यहाँ पर तो वो 5 की जगह पे 6 होना चाहिए था, बट मेरे को तो समझा ही नहीं कि वहां पर बॉर्डर राउंड करना था, तो मैंने तो किया ही नहीं. तुम 5-6 की मत करो, मैंने तो किया ही नहीं. So that gets caught in the design review process, and then design review process में अटकता था मेरा, तो मेरा the manager used to be like, oh, now timelines are getting extended. Your design reviews are much longer than somebody else's design review. You need to focus on these things. So what later on I started doing is I sat down with the designer when he gave me the design, and I would understand what are the nitty-gritties that he's designed. He would tell me देख इधर box shadow है, वो is like a thing that you usually miss out on. The font over here is different. The entire screen has one font, but there is this googly button in which I've put a second font. So make sure that you put in this font, right? So before starting my development, I would sit down and verbally understand this from the design, whoever has designed it. And that really helped me a lot. I think it's unfair to have designers make their entire UI, and then you can pick up some parts of the CSS and code from the Figma and all other things, but then have him write another document to just be able to translate it for you is a little bit unfair for them, and they hate it. I don't, matlab, I mean, of course they hate it, but they don't really like doing it. For them, the design is the documentation, right? So a verbal communication is what has worked for me. On the managerial side, we have design reviews. Having design reviews is really important. During the design reviews, people generally go through whether it has been proper or not, and it's more of a informal review, and then we do a formal review. The formal review needs to pass in the first go. If it does not pass in the first go, then there's something wrong happening in the informal review. Informal review happens on a daily basis. If you've developed something on a daily basis, after 3 hours, just show it to the designer. Maybe he can give some feedback. So there needs to be a good amount of interaction that needs to happen between these two people. If there is friction in terms of personalities, this is going to cause problems. So as a manager, that is something that you should always make sure to enable कि भाई दोनों both the people should be able to interact like human beings and not be on the opposing end of teams. It's them versus somebody else and not this person versus this person is what as a manager at least you should enable to do.
I do the design review which you are talking about. I used to make a list of 100 or 120 changes. Like there were very small changes as well, but like shadow color is black, it should be 83 is as minor as that. But yeah, this is something I
How do you do Figma? Figma pe now most of the code is available, right? Don't people now just copy paste it from CSS and Figma? So these reviews are less now.
no, actually, still there are problems. Whenever there is a tight deadline, they don't take into consideration way too much of small things. Then we have things. They get the buttons and components that linking from the design system that we have. So they get the name and everything, and they find from the front end side of it. But sometimes not many a times we do find small little things like as simple as table shadow, like very light table shadow that we have, and we don't see that. Then there are two corner radiuses, one is sharp and one is rounded, both are at the same table. So those things we need to point out.
Sorry to cut you off again, Nikhil. But just since you were talking, I wanted you to expand a little bit. From a designer's point of view, what should a developer do better, right? We always ask if developer should do something better, and we take developers' views and opinions. From a designer's point of view, what should the developer do better so that they are able to not go through this entire.
I'll tell you a few examples. So when I'm reviewing design, so I don't know how to express this to a developer in a corporate lingo, we can say, so that everybody are happy. So there is this modal and there is a table in it. Okay. So in a design, I'll make sure that the table is filled and there is the both the spaces are equal and everything. And when they develop it, the table is half, something like this length, and the buttons will be secondary instead of primary, and then they will give us for review. So when such things come, I don't know how to like because both the design and the what you are developing, it is in front of you, right? Like you can see it is not matching. So sometimes then how will you communicate that? Now you tell me. Like I've worked with front end developers who are really good, so I don't have to review the design at all. I worked with them as well, but there are few developers, as you said, they can't see like there are buttons, sharp edges. They don't care as well.
Yeah. So that's me. So I'll tell you why, how you can tell me. Like if you and I were working together, I would be like, ki, if we wouldn't have figured out this way of ki me coming and first having conversation with you, the way I would want you to communicate this to me is on a personal Slack channel, na, just list without the corporate lingo, just dump as much of things like a friend talks to me as you can. Just dump it to me. Like it's okay if you write cusses, if you be like कि अरे दिखता नहीं है क्या ये कि मतलब I'm quite comfortable with those things, right? Yeah. So it does not always has to be like a corporate lingo.
Now, sometimes when I have to fill it in a sheet, like this is the button which is wrong, then I have to write it in a proper way. Because when I go to them and they
Yeah.
have 10 other problems, right? Their, let's say the APIs are not working, something is not connected properly. They are into that. They are in fixing that. And I come up with like table ke edges थोड़े rounded हो जाए तो like that is a different kind of a problem. Like we have much bigger issues to solve. So yeah, but I got your point. कि you can directly come up to us like informal way
Got it.
of communicating. कि भाई ये गलत. I'm back. Okay, I'll start my question again. So Zir, I was asking कि since MNCs में there is process driven everything. Yeah, that's what I was asking. Like there are process driven. So how?
Yeah. Yeah, it is very process driven. So everything which we have, let's say a project or even my team has defined set of items. वो तो होगा ही अगर if the UI is deviating from that thing कि अच्छा यहाँ पे राउंडेड होना चाहिए स्टैंडर्ड प्रोसीजर में तो ये रेक्टेंगुलर ही था तो that is when that thing is documented somewhere जो कि डेवलपर के पास जब रिक्वायरमेंट आता है the changes from normal जो भी defined set of rules है उसके अलावा whatever changes are there only that set of changes come to a developer.
Hmm.
Everything apart from that you have to think of it as it is the standard set of rules which is being followed. That is how usually it is done. So it is actually mix of documentation, proper documentation, because you are following a set of rules. If you are deviating from one, even a small thing like font, that should be documented, and that is provided to the developer. So friction is less in this way. And another thing that helps is sitting with the UX person. That always helps. That helps the most, even better than documentation. But see, again this comes to the point document ठीक से नहीं किया which means front end developer would only follow the documentation. If it is not documented there means it is not communicated well. So of course,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that is how it is defined. It is already decided. You, yeah, very well documented, and there is standard way of doing everything. Like everything, even a model इधर placement होगा table का standard throughout all the. Let's say for example you open the Amazon app, it's standard. Rules are set. You will not see much changes around the UX side of app. That is how it is in Amazon.
So with the documentation, the prototype that you get, even that is that level of detail, like with micro interaction and everything.
Yeah, that is there. Documentation is like, I would say it's very good, but also it's pain point documenting things, but it's everything is overly documented.
Okay. And one thing to Yash or Bhavesh, anyone, since there are two ways now, they in a big company or MNC, they have the time and the luxury of time to document and make the prototypes and everything. But now let's say if you have a deadline with a very strong deadline and everything, and now if I want to give you a design and such that you replicate it properly and such that you understand the whole concept properly, what would you expect, like the least amount of thing that you would expect, like to get the thing going?
At least if in that case, if there's a tight and strict deadlines, micro interactions can go away, and a normal Figma file will work, but then that UX guy has to accept both of the things, like developer experience as well as the UX experience both.
Got it.
So then it should go hand in hand.
I think in startups or companies that are not like Amazon size or with like 800, 900,000 people size, it's really driven by the company's culture and the engineering culture. So if your company's culture says we are okay with both the buttons not looking the same in color, but we want to ship it and we want to see what the user clicks, and that's fine with us, that's fine with the company, then that's never a problem. But if the company culture says that no, we are somebody who's very peculiar about what the entire user experience needs to be, what the entire interface needs to look like, then either associate those into your timelines, and the company needs to agree that according to our company culture, we'll invest this much time into some building something because that's what you're investing into. And let's assume you accommodated those into your timelines, and if you still have strict deadlines, then it's really about how good of a developer you are and what kind of interactions you are. Maybe as a developer, you already have incorporated those things into your design, your review process is smaller. Then it really depends upon your nitty-gritties of how you're interacting with your design team, whether they're okay with removing something, whether they're okay with uh, removing some animations and just having something like a normal button or a normal scroll or something of that sort. So it's again really company and engineering culture driven in smaller companies.
Don't know about like how service-based companies operate in this, but in product-based companies, this happens. Like you have that's the reason I think I've saw many as SaaS tools which have very minimal design, and they have shipped their products at least to get at least the user feedbacks, how that user behavior is, and then they optimize it, the design and everything. So in product-based companies, this happens. Like in a starting point of time, they ship whatever UI state they are in, and then they sort of optimize it.
Okay. So I have one last question now. Okay. So what are the skills required to be a full stack developer, let's say? What and where can you learn from? Where can you, because we have so many resources. Like, do you have a good resources to go to and to learn? And what are the skills required?
I think if you want to be a full stack dev, at least you can choose a programming language and just keep your basics right, and then you can scale on advanced level and go through the documentation. YouTube is the best resource, and maybe your peers or maybe your mentors. There are many channels or there are many programs also which people offer, but they are highly paid. Don't go into the trap. In YouTube also, if you might have seen, there are many in universities or sort of courses they are charging 5 lakhs or 8 lakh rupees to teach you full stack developer courses. Don't fall it for. Go into documentation, talk to your mentors, they will help you out, and there are many good YouTube channels to learn those programming skills which you want. You can, and then you can make a projects which will help you at least to at least get you into an industry or internships at least, and then you can scale it further. That's what I have did.
I think a lot of people know where to find. I think most of the people are now able to find these resources. It's just now the question is not where can you find these resources, it's a question of which ones to follow and which ones are actually engineering driven versus which ones are monetary or promotion driven. And again, no offense to anybody. Maybe some businesses have this model where it's just like a college, right? Where you go to get a degree. The same way there are companies whose business model is to teach you in the engineering, so they'll push that sort of a content. So it's not a dig at some other company, but it's more of a realization that which rather than where to go, which content to consume. And the skills now, primarily after AI being used so much, is more towards knowing the core principles of what you're developing, good quality code, having better code review processes, and thinking from first principles towards solving a problem, right? You're not just monkey coding something, you understand the business context of certain things, you solve those problems, and then what business value that it provides is far much more important in today's time, I feel, as a full stack. And coding, you'll always find on YouTube. Now, even AI a lot of people are using AI just to understand what certain concepts are like, and they'll just follow up with questions and then it'll keep on answering, it'll keep on teaching you something, it'll keep on explaining you something. Previously, people used to do this via YouTube videos. Now it's just available everywhere, right? So, yeah, those are some of.
Yeah, I think there are many resources available. It's just that if you're just starting it, actually do practically code it. Just watching a video or looking at the code would not help you learn things. It's just there, it's not in your head. Let's say you are completing a playlist in 30 hours, that doesn't mean you know that thing. So implement it. If you are beginning, if you are starting it, implement few things. Of course, doing a project and talking with group of people who are actually working in that area helps a lot, because you know how practically things are used. And again, yeah, I think this is all you need. You need one front end framework, one back end framework, one choice of database. With this you can learn it. You don't need to learn everything at a single go. You can't learn React and Angular at same time. That is not how you should approach it. Just do one thing at a time and actually do code. It's Don't just watch videos or read the blogs. That is what I would say.
So like practically just pick up a task and learn
A
while
small project, a task, anything. Yes, yes, yes. And try to talk with people in industry so that you know exactly how are things there in industry. It's not like how you just main file में code लिख के जावा का code industry में नहीं चलता. You have certain things, right? So of course learning the concept while writing it in the one single file helps, but overall there are design patterns and all that kind of things, how MVC layer or all that kind of stuff present. So you should interact with someone who is actually working and doing that kind of stuff. That also helps.
okay. So yeah, that was my actually last question. But after that, you guys can just tell us like advice do you guys want to give to someone who is entering your field, and any kind of a pointers or something which you want to like to share additionally, which I have not covered something. So yeah, it's up to you. Yeah, Bhavesh.
Not much, but just write your code. Like how you said in starting that show me your code.
I would suggest the general advices are out there, right? Which is have good coding principles, learn this language, keep yourself updated. Those general advices are out there. On top of that, I would suggest understand the business context of what you're trying to solve. Don't be a code monkey. You and I were speaking on call, and I asked you, Nikhil, why is it that you're having difficult time gathering developers? There's so many, like throw a stone, you'll find a developer, right? And you said they don't want to interact, and there are certain restrictions that they have. In general, understand the business context, talk to people, don't just be limited to your code base. Understand what business problem your code is solving. And I would suggest don't what I'm noticing now a lot is people are just going in it for the money, because the compensations nowadays have gone in a crazy direction sometimes. And if you're just in it for the money, that is sooner or later going to cause problems, right? There is somebody who genuinely loves coding, and then they get up on a Saturday morning and then they build their own personal small project, or they explore something on a Saturday morning. You get up on a Saturday morning because the manager has asked you to complete some feature that you couldn't complete during the week. Eventually, you'll get burnt out if you're doing it just for the money. So, if you're good at something, you'll probably make money irrespective, even if you're in a different field. So, if you're coming over here, come come for the right reasons. Don't come for the money.
Yeah, I think it's again, you have to code. You should be curious about things, I would say. And if you are given a task, you should think of the big picture and what impact is created by that task, which again boils down to what Yash said already. But yeah, these are the things. And when you are trying to enter it, I think good quality of code is also important. So you should know that if you are writing a for loop, your variable name shouldn't be I. If you are writing a logic for retrying, variable name should be somewhat related to retry. These kind of things, yeah. Yeah, I think just be curious more. That is what I would like to suggest.
I think you should also be able to ask why this is working in a such a way. That why factor as a developer you should have.
Yeah.
This is actually everything that I've heard from all three of us now is on top of what is existing out there, right? So if
Yeah.
somebody is listening to this and they're like, "Ki, if I just ask why and I'll become the best full stack developer," that's not the true case. You need to know eventually how to code and
How
how
to code and everything.
to and evaluate a certain programming language, understand how it works, how understand what the core compiler works, or how the event loop works in JavaScript, or how the compiler works in Golang, what a multi-thread language is, why one over the other. All of those things are important, and then you have everything that we have said. So if somebody's like skipping all the things in between and then just coming to this, will not work for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I can see.
Now we can see.
Please do a deep dive into Riverside's code and share them the insights and everything. Actually, I was adding to your point, Yash, that I'm not a developer, but still I wanted to give an advice. The most coding that I have done is made that diamond using stars, that two for loops, okay? So the cool one. So that's the most I have done. But still, the one advice I would like to give to developers, which I've seen, the problem is do understand the business
Yeah,
problem, and so you will
yeah,
be able to understand the design as well, because we sit with the stakeholders and understand the problem. That's how we create the design. So now if you understand the whole problem, then you will understand the design as well, plus what you are building and what you are for. So that will give a much better perspective, and you can give input as well from that. This you can add into designs. I have seen developers in my company, they take very much interest into what we are building. So they come up to me like, Nikhil, you can add this to the design because this is what we are building, and this will be helpful. So I added to that. Then such kind of an attitude will be much better. But yeah, that is it. Yeah, that was my 2 cents. Anyways, but yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for taking out so much time. I know I told you guys 45 minutes to 1 hour max, but you see how this conversation starts, and you don't know want to stop it like that. Anyways, yeah, that was it. Thank you. Thank you so much. But
Thanks.
Thanks, Nikhil,
thank you so
thank
much for having us,
for
Nikhil.
having us.
yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nikhil, for having us.
well, yeah, we
Thanks.
might
It
meet
was
at
fun.
Yash next dev dinner that you have. I can come as an imposter, like
Yeah,
even as a designer. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. You'll
Okay.
some
Then
you'll hear most of the stories over there are some are technical, but most of them are just like people coming and sharing their experiences, right? Like it's in general like a fun, chill vibe. People sit down, so it's not like Nikhil won't able like तेरे सिर के ऊपर से कुछ भी नहीं जाएगा. You'll understand everything perfectly.
okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Thank you so much, guys.
Okay.
That
Yes,
was it. That was for
Thanks.
the
Thanks,
full
thanks.
stack.
Bye.
yes.
Thanks.
Bye.
And if you have any guys any
Bye.
questions, just share it in the comments, please. You guys also can respond to if someone shares any dev query, so you guys can answer that. Okay, because I might not cover it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Have a happy weekend, guys.
Cool.
Thank you so much for coming. Bye
Thanks. Bye
bye.
bye.
You
Thanks,
too.
thanks.
Happy
Bye.
Bye.
weekend. Bye.
Bye. See you. Bye.